Hello, everyone. Here again to read another chapter from Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Link is in the comment if you're interested in reading this for yourself. This oops, is what the cover of the book looks like. And the next chapter I'm reading is Identifying and Expressing Feelings. So I was really eager to share from this book because it can really improve or save your relationships and spare you a lot of misunderstandings and assumptions. Sometimes we are genuinely not in touch with our feelings and needs at all, or we think we're expressing them, but what other people are hearing is criticism, judgment, put downs, and then we act hurt and surprised when they respond with defensiveness or hostility instead of what we want, without realizing that it's we don't think what we think we're saying is not what's being heard. So that's what this chapter is going to be talking about a little bit. All right. So the first component of nonviolent communication is to observe without evaluating, which is an earlier video I did today, reading that chapter. The second component is to express how we are feeling. Psychoanalyst Rollo May suggests that the mature person becomes able to differentiate feelings into as many nuances, strong and passionate experiences, or delicate and sensitive ones, as in the different passages of music in a symphony. For many of us, however, our feelings are, as May would describe it, limited like notes in a bugle call. First section is the heavy cost of unexpressed feelings. Our repertoire of words for calling people names is often larger than our vocabulary of words to clearly describe our emotional states. I went through 21 years of American schools and can't recall anyone in all that time ever asking me how I felt. Feelings were simply not considered important. What was valued was the right way to think, as defined by those who held positions of rank and authority. We are trained to be other-directed rather than to be in contact with ourselves. We learn to be up in our head, wondering, what is it the others think is right for me to say and do? An interaction I had with a teacher when I was about 9 years old demonstrates how alienation from our feelings can begin. I once hid myself in a classroom after school because some boys were waiting outside to beat me up. A teacher spotted me and asked me to leave the school. When I explained I was afraid to go, she declared, "Big boys don't get frightened." A few years later, I received further reinforcement through my participation in athletics. It was typical for coaches to value athletes willing to give their all and continue playing no matter how much physical pain they were in. I learned the lesson so well, I once continued playing baseball for a month with an untreated broken wrist. At a nonviolent communication workshop, a college student spoke about being kept awake by a roommate who played the stereo late at night and loudly. When asked to express what he felt when this happened, the student replied, "I feel that it isn't right to play music so loud at night." I pointed out that when he followed the word feel with the word that, he was expressing an opinion, but not revealing his feelings. Asked to try again to express his feelings, he responded, "I feel when people do something like that, it's a personality disturbance." I explained that this was still an opinion rather than a feeling. He paused thoughtfully and then announced with vehemence, "I have no feelings about it whatsoever." The student obviously had strong feelings. Unfortunately, he didn't know how to become aware of his feelings, let alone express them. This difficulty in identifying and expressing feelings is common, And in my experience, especially so among lawyers, engineers, police officers, corporate managers, and career military personnel, people whose professional codes discourage them from manifesting emotions. For families, the toll is severe when members are unable to communicate emotions. Country singer Reba McEntire wrote a song after her father's death and titled it "The Greatest Man I Never Knew." In so doing, she undoubtedly expressed the sentiments of many people who are never able to establish the emotional connection they would have liked with their fathers. It's important because there's so many ways that we think we're expressing our feelings, but we're actually expressing judgments and opinions and not what we are really feeling about something. And in a way, like with the student in this example, expressing his opinions about what he thought of his roommate's behavior and what it meant, what kind of person it made his roommate, it was denying his own responsibility of his reaction to what was happening. So there's also that interesting separation in that way from what's living in us. I regularly hear statements like, "I wouldn't want you to get the wrong idea. I'm married to a wonderful man, but I never know what he is feeling." One such dissatisfied woman brought her spouse to a workshop, during which she told him, "I feel like I'm married to a wall." The husband did an excellent imitation of a wall. He sat mute and immobile. Exasperated, she turned to me and exclaimed, "See, this is what happens all the time. He sits and says nothing. It's just like living with a wall." This is actually something I hear pretty regularly doing readings here on my page as well about relationships, and that I see this dynamic, women and men, like this man and woman, where one partner is desperately frustrated with the other person being unresponsive. So let's see how this is handled. "It sounds like to me you are feeling lonely and wanting more emotional contact with your husband," I responded. When she agreed, I tried to show how statements such as, "I feel like I'm living with a wall," are unlikely to bring her feelings and desires to her husband's attention. In fact, they are more likely to be heard as criticism than as invitations to connect with our feelings. Furthermore, such statements often lead to self-fulfilling prophecies. A husband or boyfriend or other partner, for example, hears himself criticized for behaving like a wall. He is hurt and discouraged and doesn't respond, thereby confirming his wife's image of him as a wall. So this is really important. This is how we make assumptions and how we think we are communicating our feelings and needs. And then we're surprised and frustrated and angry with our partners when they're not met, without realizing that what the other person hears is criticism, and criticism makes people shut down, which means not getting what you want and getting more of what you're frustrated by. So it's really important to change how we're expressing ourselves. The benefits of strengthening our feelings vocabulary are evident not only in intimate relationships, but also in the professional world. I was once hired to consult with members of a technological department of a large Swiss corporation. They were troubled by the discovery that workers in other departments were avoiding them. When asked, employees from other departments responded, "We hate going there to consult with those people. It's like talking to a bunch of machines." The problem abated when I spent time with members of the technological department, encouraging them to express more of their humanness in their communications with coworkers. In another instance, I was working with hospital administrators who were anxious about a forthcoming meeting with the hospital's physicians. The administrators were eager to have me demonstrate how they might use nonviolent communication when approaching the physicians for support for a project that had only recently been turned down by a vote of 17-1. Assuming the voice of an administrator in a role-playing session, I opened with, "I'm feeling frightened to be bringing up this issue." I chose to start this way because I sensed how frightened the administrators were as they prepared to confront the physicians on this topic again. Before I could continue, one of the administrators stopped me to protest, You're being unrealistic. We could never tell the physicians that we were frightened. When I asked why an admission of fear seemed so impossible, he replied without hesitation, if we admitted we were frightened, then they would just pick us to pieces. His answer didn't surprise me. I have often heard people say they cannot imagine ever expressing feelings at their workplace. Also, people sometimes cannot imagine ever expressing their feelings in their relationships. I was pleased to learn, however, that one of the administrators did decide to risk expressing his vulnerability at the dreaded meeting. Departing from his customary manner of appearing strictly logical, rational, and unemotional, he chose to state his feelings together with his reasons for wanting the physicians to change their position. He noticed how differently the physicians responded to him. In the end, he was amazed and relieved when, instead of picking him to pieces, the physicians reversed their previous position and voted 17-1 to support the project instead. This dramatic turnaround helped the administrators realize and appreciate the potential impact of expressing vulnerability even in the workplace. With the earlier example of the husband and wife, where the wife complained that the husband is like a wall, by saying such things and treating him that way, she can only expect to have him become more shut down, and he's not likely to express why he's unresponsive or the fact that he feels discouraged and hurt, because he doesn't feel like he can be vulnerable. So it's important, that idea. Expressing our vulnerability can help resolve conflicts, creates the sense that we're genuinely open to working things out or compromising with others. Finally, let me share a personal incident that taught me the effects of hiding our feelings. I was teaching a course in nonviolent communication to a group of inner-city students. When I walked into the room the first day, the students, who had been enjoying a lively conversation with each other, became quiet. "Good morning," I greeted. Silence. I felt very uncomfortable, but was afraid to express it. Instead, I proceeded in my most professional manner. "For this class, we will be studying a process of communication that I hope you will find helpful in your relationships at home and with your friends." I continued to present information about nonviolent communication, but no one seemed to be listening. One girl, rummaging through her bag, fished out a file and began vigorously filing her nails. Students near the windows glued their faces to the panes as if fascinated by what was going on in the street below. I felt increasingly more uncomfortable, yet continued to say nothing about it. Finally, a student, who had certainly more courage than I was demonstrating, piped up, "You just hate being with black people, don't you?" I was stunned, yet immediately realized how I had contributed to the student's perception by trying to hide my discomfort. "I am feeling nervous," I admitted, "but not because you are black. My feelings have to do with my not knowing anyone here and wanting to be accepted when I came in the room." My expression of vulnerability had a pronounced effect on the students. They started to ask questions about me, to tell me things about themselves, and to express curiosity about nonviolent communication. So the next section is called Feelings versus Non-Feelings. Also, hello to everyone. Hello, Victoria. I'm well, thanks for asking. I hope you and everyone else watching is well too. Talk about our feelings. So we think we're expressing our feelings, but what we think we're saying is not what other people hear, and that creates misunderstandings and fights in relationships. Feelings versus non-feelings. A common confusion generated by the English language is our use of the word feel without actually expressing a feeling. For example, in the sentence, "I feel I didn't get a fair deal," the words "I feel" could be more accurately replaced with "I think." In general, feelings are not being clearly expressed when the word feel is followed by 1. Words such as that, like, as if. Examples: "I feel that you should know better." I feel like a failure. I feel as if I'm living with a wall. 2. The pronouns I, you, he, she, they, it. I feel I am constantly on call. I feel it is useless. 3. Names or nouns referring to people. Examples: I feel Amy has been pretty responsible. Or I feel my boss is being manipulative. Distinguish feelings from thoughts and opinions. Conversely, in the English language, it is not necessary to use the word feel at all when we are actually expressing a feeling. We can say, I'm feeling irritated, or simply, I'm irritated. Distinguish between what we feel and what we think we are. In nonviolent communication, we distinguish between words that express actual feelings and those that describe what we think we are. 1. Description of what we think we are. Example: I feel inadequate as a guitar player. In this statement, I'm assessing my ability as a guitar player rather than clearly expressing my feelings. 2. Expressions of actual feelings. I feel disappointed in myself as a guitar player. I feel impatient with myself as a guitar player. I feel frustrated with myself as a guitar player. The actual feeling behind my assessment of myself as inadequate could therefore be disappointment, impatience, frustration, or some other emotion. Likewise, it is helpful to differentiate between words that describe what we think others are doing around us and words that describe actual feelings. The following are examples of statements that are easily mistaken as expressions of feelings. In fact, they reveal more how we think others are behaving than what we are actually feeling ourselves, which also includes not saying what people are actually doing, what we think they are doing. Distinguish between what we feel and how we think others react or behave towards us. The first example is, I feel unimportant to the people with whom I work. The word unimportant describes how I think others are evaluating me rather than an actual feeling, which in this situation might be, I feel sad or I feel discouraged. 2. I feel misunderstood. Here the word misunderstood indicates my assessment of the other person's level of understanding rather than an actual feeling. In this situation, I may be feeling anxious or annoyed or some other emotion. 3. I feel ignored. Again, this is more of an interpretation of the actions of others than a clear statement of how we are feeling. No doubt there have been times we thought we were being ignored and our feeling was relief because we wanted to be left to ourselves. No doubt there were other times, however, when we felt hurt, when we thought we were being ignored because we had wanted to be involved. Words like ignored express how we interpret others rather than how we feel. Here is a sampling of such words. And these words are interpretations of other people's actions rather than none of these are actual feelings. Abandoned, abused, attacked, betrayed, boxed in, bullied, cheated, coerced, co-opted, cornered, diminished, distrusted, interrupted, intimidated, let down, manipulated, misunderstood, neglected, overworked, patronized, pressured, provoked, put down, rejected, taken for granted, threatened, unappreciated, unheard, unseen, unsupported, unwanted, and used. Building a vocabulary for feelings. And expressing our feelings, it helps to use words that refer to specific emotions rather than words that are vague or general. For example, if we say, I feel good about that, the word good could mean happy, excited, relieved, or a number of other emotions. Words such as good and bad prevent the listener from connecting easily with what we might actually be feeling. The following lists have been compiled to help you increase your power to articulate feelings and clearly describe a whole range of emotional states. So I'm going to read through these lists really quickly because I feel it's useful to still hear them. Obviously, if you want to go over the list at length, you can buy the book. How we are likely to feel when our needs are being met, because that's what nonviolent communication is all about, and that's why being able to express our actual feelings and needs to our partner is important, so we feel like our needs are being met and we feel cared for, and also being able to hear the other person's needs. How we are likely to feel when our needs are being met. Absorbed, adventurous, affectionate, alert, alive, amazed, amused, animated, appreciative, ardent, aroused, astonished, blissful, breathless, buoyant, calm, carefree, cheerful, comfortable, complacent, composed, concerned, confident, contented, cool, curious, dazzled, delighted, eager, ebullient, ecstatic, effervescent, elated, enchanted, encouraged, energetic, engrossed, enlivened, enthusiastic, excited, exhilarated, expansive, expectant, exultant, fascinated, free, friendly, fulfilled, glad, gleeful, glorious, glowing, good-humored, grateful, gratified, happy, helpful, hopeful, inquisitive, inspired, intense, interested, intrigued, invigorated, involved, joyous, joyful, jubilant, keyed up, loving, mellow, merry, mirthful, moved, optimistic, overjoyed, overwhelmed, peaceful, perky, pleasant, pleased, proud, quiet, radiant, rapturous, refreshed, relaxed, relieved, satisfied, secure, sensitive, serene, spellbound, splendid, stimulated, surprised, tender, thankful, thrilled, touched, tranquil, trusting, upbeat, warm, wide awake, wonderful, and zestful. I know that was a mouthful. But it is useful and helpful to be specific in how we express our feelings. How we are likely to feel when our needs are not being met. Here we go. Afraid, aggravated, agitated, alarmed, aloof, angry, anguished, annoyed, anxious, apathetic, apprehensive, or ashamed, beat, bewildered, bitter, blah, blue, bored, broken-hearted, chagrined, cold, concerned, confused, cool, cross, dejected, depressed, despairing, despondent, detached, disaffected, disappointed, discouraged, disenchanted, disgruntled, disgusted, disheartened, dismayed, displeased, disquieted, distressed, disturbed, downcast, downhearted, dull, edgy, embarrassed, embittered, exasperated, exhausted, fatigued, fearful, fidgety, forlorn, frightened, frustrated, furious, gloomy, guilty, harried, heavy, helpless, hesitant, horrible, horrified, hostile, hot, humdrum, hurt, impatient, indifferent, intense, irate, irked, irritated, jealous, jittery, keyed up, lazy, weary, lethargic, listless, lonely, mad, mean, miserable, mopey, morose, mournful, nervous, nettled, numb, overwhelmed, panicky, passive, perplexed, pessimistic, puzzled, rancorous, reluctant, repelled, resentful, restless, sad, scared, sensitive, shaky, shocked, skeptical, sleepy, sorrowful, sorry, spiritless, startled, surprised, suspicious, tepid, terrified, tired, troubled, uncomfortable, unconcerned, uneasy, unglued, unhappy, unnerved, unsteady, upset, uptight, vexed, weary, wistful, withdrawn, woeful, worried, and wretched. So the point of this vast vocabulary and why you would use one word over another, even though they both kind of generally mean feeling mad or sad or badly, is that each word does mean something slightly different, and it more clearly articulates what you are actually experiencing to another person and also to yourself, because it's not helpful when we are not really actually that clear about what we're feeling. Cynthia, reading your comment, I like the positive words better. I almost felt better just hearing that. Indeed. That's something really interesting that I've noticed with that sort of thing. It's important to articulate ourselves clearly. Our words have a literal effect on ourselves, hearing ourselves speak, as well as on the other person. And also, because you mentioned that, the whole point of this chapter is being able to describe our actual emotions, not interpretations of what we think other people are doing or criticisms and judgments of other people. Because you have to think about, let's go back to the example of the woman at the beginning where it's like, my husband is totally unresponsive. It's like living with a wall. These are not positive words. And it's like, think about how you would feel if your partner said that to you and the effect of the actual language upon you, instead of her saying, kind of go back, so I like the example that he gave. Oops. Saying, if instead she says, I am feeling lonely and wanting more emotional contact with you, although those are not necessarily positive words, she is expressing negative feelings, it sounds and feels, and like the vibe of that feels better rather than the kind of accusation of being unresponsive as if you are deliberately withholding from your partner. Perhaps it's like assuming what's going on with you. Maybe you're going through something. Maybe your unresponsiveness has nothing to do with her. And by opening up this request, it gives you the opportunity to be vulnerable and open about your own feelings. So, continuing the chapter. Summary. The second component necessary for expressing ourselves is feelings. By developing a vocabulary of feelings that allows us to clearly and specifically name or identify our emotions, we can connect more easily with one another. Allowing ourselves to be vulnerable by expressing our feelings can help resolve conflicts. Nonviolent communication distinguishes the expression of actual feelings from words and statements that describe thoughts, assessments, and interpretations. And there's an exercise at the end here that I'll go ahead and read to you. The exercise, expressing feelings. If you would like to see whether we're in agreement about the verbal expression of feelings, you won't be circling. Decide which statements below, in which ones are expressing actual feelings, not opinions, assessments, judgments. So we'll go one by one. I'll say the statement and give you a moment to decide, and then read the answer. So 1. I like this exercise because it gives examples of things that are frequently said in conversations that happen between people in relationships where the conversation is not productive. Statement 1. I feel you don't love me. Are we expressing feelings in this statement? If you thought that feelings were being expressed in that statement, I feel you don't love me, then we are not in agreement. I don't consider you don't love me to be a feeling. To me, it expresses what the speaker thinks the other person is feeling rather than how the speaker is feeling. Whenever the words I feel are followed by words I, you, he, she, they, it, that, like, or as if, what follows is generally not what I would consider to be a feeling. An expression of feeling in this case might be I'm sad or I'm feeling anguished, rather than saying I feel you don't love me, which is not a feeling. It's an assessment. So the next statement is, I'm sad that you're leaving. Is this expressing feelings? If you said that this was expressing a feeling, then we are in agreement. Statement 3. I feel scared when you say that. This is expressing a feeling. If you said that this was expressing a feeling, then we are in agreement. Statement 4. When you don't greet me, I feel neglected. This expressing a feeling. If you said that this was, we're not in agreement. I don't consider neglected to be a feeling. To me, it expresses what the speaker thinks the other person is doing to them. An expression of feeling might be, when you don't greet me at the door, I feel lonely. Statement 5. I'm happy that you can come. Is this expressing feelings? If you said yes, then we are in agreement. This is expressing a feeling. Statement 6. You're disgusting. Is this expressing a feeling? If you said that this is expressing a feeling, we are not in agreement. I don't consider disgusting to be a feeling. To me, it expresses how the speaker thinks about the other person rather than how the speaker is feeling. An expression of feeling might be, I feel disgusted. This is also important because it, in a really subtle way, it's taking responsibility for that feeling rather than putting the whole onus of that on the other person. Statement 7. I feel like hitting you. This is expressing feelings. If you said that this was expressing feelings, we're not in agreement. I don't consider like hitting you to be a feeling. To me, it expresses what the speaker imagines doing rather than how the speaker is feeling. An expression of feeling might be, I am furious at you. And also, it's a little different because if you're having a conversation and your partner crosses their arms and says, I feel like hitting you, even if they never have and never would, it is inherently threatening and would cause one to become defensive. If they say instead, I'm furious at you, it hits a little differently. The next statement is, I feel misunderstood. This is expressing feelings. If you said yes, we are not in agreement. I don't consider misunderstood to be a feeling. To me, it expresses what the speaker thinks the other person is doing. You are assuming the other person misunderstands. An expression of feeling in this case might be, I feel frustrated, or I feel discouraged. The next statement is, I feel good about what you did for me. This is expressing feelings. If you said yes, we're in agreement that a feeling was verbally expressed. However, the word good is vague when used to convey a feeling. We can usually express our feelings more clearly by using other words. For example, relieved, gratified, or encouraged. The next statement is, I'm worthless. This is expressing a feeling. If you said this was expressing a feeling, we're not in agreement. I don't consider worthless to be a feeling. To me, it expresses how the speaker thinks about themselves, rather than how the speaker is feeling. An expression of feeling in this case might be, I feel skeptical about my own talents, or I feel wretched. I think this is important as well. When we talk about our feelings, like about ourselves, especially if we do struggle with things like self-esteem, when we feel badly towards ourselves, saying like I'm worthless is common, but it's like you may consider, like if this is you or someone else, you've become so detached from your own feelings, you're not actually in touch with them to know what it is you're feeling. You're stuck in this self-assessment. If instead you could connect with the fact that underneath your self-assessment you feel wretched or extremely negative feelings, or you feel skeptical about your talents or what's behind that assessment, it puts you more in touch with what's really living inside of you. And it's a place you can work forward from. A judgment has a sense of finality about it. But as a human being, we're always evolving, changing. And sometimes judgments deny that reality. So that concludes this chapter. I hope that this has been helpful to you. I'm generally trying to stick to one chapter a video. So I am looking forward to continuing. The next chapter is called Taking Responsibility for Our Feelings, which maybe I am eager to get to because I feel that it's a really important concept. So I really appreciate those of you who watched and participating in the exercise at the end there. It can be a challenge to apply this manner of communication in our own lives. I find it challenging and far from perfect. But I try to apply it more all the time. And it's concepts that have changed the way that I look at things and the way that I respond to other people. And it can really potentially revolutionize one's relationship if a lot of like assessments and judgments and interpretations have been taking ways instead of actually talking about your feelings. It may be like weird to think about in your relationship how you've never actually talked about what you're feeling, but about your assessments and judgments and interpretations and opinions about what's happening in the situation what the other person's doing and what you think about them or yourself or what you think they think about you. So by learning how to talk about what we are actually feeling, our actual emotions, we are able to express vulnerability and be in touch with our needs and to make specific requests that people can actually fulfill, and as a means of nurturing the relationship rather than them attempting to guess or the assumptions compiling and ultimately ending in the end of the relationship or existing in a situation of extreme conflict. All right, so I'm going to bring this to a close. Thanks for watching, and take care of yourselves.